change. And thank God that we have a number of people who are in the cultural arts, so to speak, who try to do good in the world. And speaking of that, we have a former art teacher and union rep in the Skokie school system, I believe.
Park Ridge.
Park Ridge. My most humble apologies to both towns.
For both, yeah. Mainly, you should apologize to Skokie. Yeah.
And one of the things that I've known this guy a long time, and we've been on various sides of the sectarian fence, but always on the side of the progressive cause. And we've grown to be pretty good friends. And I follow him every day. He is the most prolific blogger, and perhaps the only blogger that I pay attention to. So let's have a big round of applause for Fred Klonsky.
Welcome aboard, Fred. Welcome back.
It's not every day that I get to have Corky Siegel as my opening act. So I was going to bring my ukulele,
I thought it would have been cool.
But it would have been way too presumptuous. You know, I have to tell you, you guys are like the Ben Joravsky of radio.
Oh.
Back last winter, you had State Representative Kelly Cassidy on your show.
That's
we
right.
like her.
And so do I. And but she wasn't exactly right on the pension question, and you very kindly invited me to come on. I think after I asked you to.
Well, we were encouraging her.
And the important thing about that was that Representative Cassidy changed her position on the pension issue.
She's been
voted against Michael Madigan. And
listen to that applause, Kelly.
yeah. And not only that, but because you have paid attention to this very sexy topic of pensions, it has now really become a national topic. Matt Taibbi's done a story in Rolling Stone, and nothing gets hipper than that. Well, maybe 20 years ago. And Sirota has been doing stuff on Salon about it, mainly pointing out that the attack on public employee pensions is a national problem. It's a part of the attack by Wall Street on all working folks. And you guys were really on the cutting edge of bringing this to people's attention. So I wanted to thank you for doing that.
We do appreciate that, and we do believe that we are on the cutting edge of a number of issues. And hopefully more and more people will know about the Live from the Heartland show, listen in, come out. And we're going to keep working on this show. We got some great guests lined up, and we're glad to have you here today.
Well, yeah, you're working a lot harder than the General Assembly is. They were scheduled for a veto session this week, scheduled for 3 days, but apparently 3 days in Springfield is a long week.
It is.
So they took Thursday off. They're not supposed to get back together again until the beginning of November.
They're running scared. What's the deal?
Well, they're running scared. Partly because of the fact that there are over 700,000 state retirees in the state, and particularly retired teachers, who, unlike other retirees, are spread out equally in every legislative district.
That's an interesting point.
In the state. And so when the election time rolls around, these are voters. Surprisingly, the Democratic Party in Illinois, headed by Michael Madigan and John Cullerton and Rahm Emanuel, do not seem to be taking seriously what normally would be the Democratic Party's base.
Yeah.
Right.
And are going ahead with actually leading the attack on public employee pensions. And so what I would encourage
Where do they get off at?
What I would encourage to happen is that people find people in their home districts to run. Now, in the 39th House district, where Tony Berrios, who's the daughter of the chairman of the Cook County Democratic Party,
who's got great press this week,
and Joe has been in the news the last couple days for Joe Berrios, who's the county assessor, and has been tape recordings have been made of his underlings demanding bribe money to get relief on their tax assessment.
Let's hope this gets some traction.
So she's our House representative in the 39th district who voted to cut public employee pensions. And running against her is a young guy named Will Guzzardi, who has pledged to support the Constitution of the state of Illinois and defend public employee pensions. The reason why it's important to your listeners, the reason why this is important, and not just to retirees, is that there's a $100 billion liability, money owed by the state to public employees because they've never paid what they owed into the pension fund, while public employees have paid every paycheck.
Every paycheck.
So, so the reason why it's important for your listeners is that when the bill is paid, when the state pays out, as they do every year, $5 billion to only $1.5 billion of that. It sounds funny to say only $1.5 billion, but only $1.5 billion of that is paid to the employees. The other, almost $4 billion, is paid to pay the interest on the debt. So taxpayers throughout the state of Illinois are paying almost $4 billion a year of the public employee pension debt to Wall Street. It's not going to the pensioners, it's not going to the retired employees, but $4 out of $5 billion a year is going to pay Wall Street.
Fred, I know that you deal with this stuff and talk, and it's all very known to you what these numbers mean, et cetera. But when you say something like that, if I could just channel the normal Joe and Mary taxpayer, it makes my skin crawl to think that at this moment in time, when we're stealing people's retirement, that our actual hard-earned dollars that go to pay taxes are paying for interest on a debt that the guys who made the debt are still actually in Springfield operating. They're not behind bars. They're not breaking rocks somewhere. They're still being able to play in the sandbox.
Well, Katie, you're right.
This blows my mind.
Well, it blows mine too. Why these people get to be reelected year after year? Why there's not a candidate, for example, running against the mayor of Chicago when his polling numbers are in the toilet
well, there is the question: who wants the job?
And playing the same pension game in Chicago as the legislators are doing in Springfield to state pensions.
Right.
He's sending his boys down to Springfield this week to do the exact same thing to Chicago public school teachers and policemen and firemen that the legislature wants to do to us, and that is they haven't paid. The mayor has not paid the pension bill. They owe billions of dollars to the Chicago Teacher Pension Fund, and once again, they're trying to put the burden of this cost back onto the employees. And why there isn't a candidate that hasn't stepped forward to run against the mayor, just like why throughout the state, Democratic senators and representatives who have voted to cut public employee pensions and put the burden on the taxpayers, hand over this money to Wall Street, why they're not being primaried in the Democratic primary, why Democrats aren't taking control of their party, turn it back to a party that represents the interests of working folks in the state, is exactly a mystery to me as well.
We know why. The Democrats in Chicago have always been Republicans.
Well, that's why. Some of them.
A lot of them.
All right, so on that note, in promoting this show, I did talk about that you had a plan for correcting the pension problem. And I was at a meeting the other night along with our Lieutenant Governor, who is running for comptroller, and that would be Sheila Simon. And one of the things I asked her about was the tax structure in our state. I said, what about a progressive income tax, a graduated income tax? Because I don't hear that. I think we have a kind of a reactionary tax setup. And while she said, well, that would help and part of it, she actually would not come out and say she was in favor of that, which was quite disappointing to me. You tell us, going forward, how if you were running the show, and you would be a good guy to run the show. Maybe you should run for office.
I would be a good guy to run the show.
How would you correct the pension problem? Because I had said to everybody, he's going to tell us how we could fix this problem. And of course, we're going to tell these other Democrats, whether they're Republican types or progressive Democrats, we're going to push that.
Well, here's the thing. It's not even my idea. State Representative Jacobson has a bill before the state. It's a joint constitutional resolution to change the tax system in Illinois. Right now, it's a flat tax. Penny Pritzker, whose family owns the Hyatt Hotel,
And a bunch of Rogers Park.
and is trying to do dirty stuff in Rogers Park. She pays the same, and her family pays the same tax rate as the housekeepers do who work in her hotel. This is clearly unfair, and not more importantly, but equally importantly, it's not able to raise the revenue to pay the state's taxes, and so to pay the state's bills. So what the state does is, rather than raise revenue, they cut services and cut pensions. So the solution is really quite simple, and the fact that Democrats like Simon won't stiffen up and take a position in support of this is criminal. It's really quite simple. It's a two-part plan. One is to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would change the flat tax system in Illinois to one in which the rich pay more and working folks pay less. That how much you pay in taxes should depend on how much you earn, just like we do at the federal level. And the second part of this is to close the loopholes that allow companies like Archer Daniels Midland, for example, to not pay a penny in corporate taxes to the state of Illinois. And so it's really a simple plan. It's so simple that even a Democratic candidate for comptroller could understand it, and that is you set up a progressive, fair income tax system, and if you closed 7 major existing corporate loopholes that exist in Illinois now. One, for example, there's a law that gives tax credits to Illinois corporations for offshore oil drilling. Now, you tell me where in Illinois they're doing offshore.
Please don't ask that question, because they'll start drilling in Lake Michigan.
So
Please.
if they close these
Lake Villa.
We do have a shore,
if they
after all.
close these 7 major corporate loopholes, they would immediately pay off 3/4 of the $100 billion pension debt just by doing that alone. So combining with the closing of the corporate loopholes with a fair, equitable tax system that puts the heavier burden on those who can most afford to pay, the problem would be solved. And every Democratic politician in the state ought to be challenged on why they don't support a fair tax system in the corp. Who are you serving if you don't support a fair income tax system and a corporate and closing corporate loopholes? Every Democratic Party politician, including your friends, Mike, ought to be asked the question why they're not doing the right thing on behalf of the working people of this state.
Well, I got to say, I do ask that question, and one of the things I'd like to ask you as an artist is to put together a bumper sticker that calls for progressive income tax in Illinois. And I don't, we need
Can
more
you do that
propaganda.
for us?
We really need, we need to educate people more about this issue, because people don't necessarily know what the solution is. They don't get to hear you speak about it. This sort of thing is not being said or getting much press in Springfield.
No.
So, we all knew we used to write on the walls, get out of Vietnam, do a lot of stuff. We got to take it to the streets in some form or fashion.
I couldn't agree with you more. A week ago Friday, 30, I was born in 1948. I turned 20 in
Spring Rooster.
I turned 20 in 1968. That was a good year, wasn't it?
I turned 18 in
1968 was a good year.
I thought it was a good year to be 18.
Those of us who turned 20 in those good years, 1968, turned 65 this year. I was talking to a group of retirees the other day, saying we have a new generation of
old people.
And we bring with us that kind of.
And we're not going anywhere.
And we're not going anywhere. We're going to be around
We
for
got health care.
at least another 30 years if my pension doesn't dry up. And we bring with us that 68 sensibility. So we went knocking on Senator Dan Biss's door last Friday. Dan Biss is the senator from Skokie and is one of the leading pension bombers in the Illinois legislature. And so we went knocking on his door, and he was home. He came out, and so there were 30 retirees, and our friends were there, and so he has this plan. He says, Senator Biss's plan. You have to listen. You have to check this out over there in the other room. You have to listen to this. This is his plan. He says that 30% of the money the state owes us. 30% of the money that the state owes retirees,
its workers,
ought to be paid by the retirees. And I said, I asked them, in fact, to give me 30%. I said, and he pulled out his wallet, and of course, I said, give me 30. I'm not asking for 100% or 50%. Just give me 30% of the money you have on you. And he opened up his wallet, and of course, he doesn't carry cash. So once again, a retiree got 30% and nothing. The fact is that not only does he want us to pay 30% of the debt, if the legislature gets their way, which is to cut our cost of living adjustment, which is a 3% cost of living adjustment, and is what the cost of living is if you average it out over, say, 30 years, they want to tie it to half the consumer price index, which would, over the lifetime of my pension, cut my pension in half by the time I drop dead.
I think, go ahead.
So that's their plan, is they want to take away half of my pension and have me pay 30% of the money that they already owe me. So the thing, bumper stickers are fine, Mr. James.
A little suggestion.
Bumper stickers are fine. But what we need to do is go do what we did in Skokie last week, is go knocking on the door of every senator and state rep, particularly the Democratic Party ones, and ask them, why are they, in a time of massive economic inequality? You know, did you see the report yesterday?
Yeah.
That 10, for the first time in American history,
right,
10 of the leading CEOs of major corporations are now receiving over $100 million a year in compensation.
Yeah, because they need it.
The average teacher in the state, the average retired teacher in the state of Illinois makes less than $40,000 a year on their pension. They want to cut the cost of living adjustment while these
yeah, we're
I won't
on
use
radio.
the term, while these people are making $100 million in compensation a year. Now, one of these Democrats has to explain to me why they think that's okay.
Yeah.
When I was suggesting bumper stickers, I also, what I'm basically concerned about is people knowing the true facts of this problem, this challenge. And so I think that we have to really get it into people's heads that teachers do not get Social Security. All the rest of us who do get Social Security are very grateful for it, and we get our full payment.
And we're counting on it.
And we're counting on it. So there needs to be a lot of, mass education on this, and you're doing a great job at it, Fred. Tell us your blog site where people can get it, and also tell us about the meeting you had with Jan Schakowsky.
In 20 seconds.
Yes,
in 20
you don't
seconds.
got much time.
The most important 20 seconds is fredklonsky.com. That's Klonsky. I blog. There's posts up there every day,
or two or three times a day.
Or 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah, this man needs.
When you're retired, you walk the dog, you cook dinner for your wife,
and you write,
and you blog. That's what you do.
All right. How about with Jan?
Now, Jan Schakowsky, who, as you know, is the congresswoman from this area, and is one of the really the defenders of Social Security.
We're out of time. Sorry. No, literally.
Sorry, Jan. I was going to give you a plug, Jan, but they're kicking me off.
No, they'll kick us off. They'll kick us off the air in 2 seconds.
You met her. She came
with her,
talked.
and
she did. She came and met with our group of the Skokie Organization of Retired Educators. That's our retired group. And just let me tell you, the thing that we mostly wanted to say to Jan is that she's got to talk to her colleagues who come from her district, people like Robin Gable and Dan Biss and Lane Nekritz. These are the leading pension bombers in the state legislature. And so while I'm happy that Jan supports this, she's got to talk to her folks in her district and get them on board to support working folks.
Okay, we want to thank you. You have been listening to the Live from the Heartland show. Next week, we have a great lineup. We're going to have, I won't even go into the details. We want to thank everybody who makes the show possible. We want to thank Tom Rosenfeld and the Heartland Cafe for their support. And we encourage you all to do good in the world, because the world needs all the good that you do over and out. And don't forget, all power to the people.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, Fred.
88.7 WLUW, Chicago Sound Alliance.
All you had to do is ask me how I'm doing, and I was going to be off today.